These two houses look similar, but behind the walls they are built almost completely differently. So why does America still build millions of homes with wood, even in places threatened by fires, storms, and termites? The answer involves cost, construction speed, and one historical system that made switching materials incredibly difficult. Yes, wood is cheaper and faster, but that explanation is incomplete. If price were the only reason wealthy American neighborhoods would have switched to brick generations ago, they didn't. Some of the most expensive homes in the country are still framed in wood, then dressed up with a brick or stone veneer, just a few inches thick, glued onto the same timber skeleton as everything else. So something else is going on, something deeper than a simple price comparison. In the 1800s, America had something Europe didn't, an almost endless supply of cheap timber. As settlers pushed west across forested land, sawmills followed the railroads, and a new building method, the wood stud frame, let a small crew raise a house in days instead of months. Before this, homes were often built log by log or timber frame by timber frame, requiring skilled carpenters and heavy joinery. The stud frame changed everything. It used thin, uniform boards, cheap, mass-produced nails, and simple, repeated measurements that any semi-skilled worker could learn quickly. This wasn't just a material choice, it was a whole manufacturing system, standardized around the 2x4. Decades before, Henry Ford applied the same idea of interchangeable parts and repeatable process to cars. But abundant lumber explains how the system started, not why it continues today more than a century after that forest frontier closed. If you enjoy discovering the hidden systems behind ordinary American life, subscribe. That is exactly what this channel explains. Today, framing a house in wood typically costs significantly less than building the same structure in brick or concrete block, largely because of labor. Bricklaying is slow, skilled work. A mason might lay only a few hundred bricks in a full day, and that skill takes years to develop. A framing crew, by comparison, can often close in an entire wood structure in about a week, using tools and techniques that a new worker can pick up on the job site within days. Wood saves time, but speed creates another advantage that matters even more to builders than the framing cost itself. Faster builds mean lower financing costs. Since construction loans charge interest for every week a project drags on, they mean fewer months of exposure to weather, delays, fewer disputes with subcontractors waiting on each other, and crews that can move to the next project sooner instead of sitting idle. For a builder putting up dozens or hundreds of homes a year, that turnover isn't a small saving on one house. It compounds across every single project, year after year, shaping which materials the entire company standardizes around. America doesn't simply choose wood house by house, one buyer deciding for themselves. An entire construction industry is already designed around it. Lumberyards are stocked and staffed for it. Building codes, especially in residential, zoning, are written with wood frame assemblies as the default case. Electricians and plumbers are trained to run their lines through pre-drilled wood studs, not to chase channels through masonry. Even trade schools and apprenticeship programs teach framing as the baseline skill before anything else. Switching a single house to brick or concrete means fighting that entire system at once. Different suppliers who may not operate locally. Different skilled labor that is harder to find and more expensive to hire. And different code inspections that some local offices rarely even process. It's not one small decision anymore. It's an entire industry built over generations that would have to move together for real change to happen. So what about fires, hurricanes, and the obvious fact that brick just seems stronger? On the surface, fire risk is real, and it's exactly why modern codes require fire-rated drywall layers, sprinkler systems in many new developments, and defensible landscaping space around homes. Built in wildfire-prone regions, engineering the risk down rather than abandoning the material altogether. Hurricane-prone states like Florida require reinforced framing connections, metal hurricane straps tying the roof to the walls, and impact-rated windows. And wood-framed homes built to modern code have consistently performed far better in storms than older, poorly braced structures from decades ago. As for raw strength, brick does resist fire and wind better in some scenarios, but it performs noticeably worse in earthquakes, where a rigid masonry wall can crack and collapse suddenly, while a flexible wood frame can bend, absorb the shock, and survive. Neither material is universally superior. Each is a trade-off suited to a different combination of local risks. And American building codes increasingly try to engineer around wood's weaknesses, rather than replace it entirely. America builds with wood because it began. With abundant lumber across an expanding frontier, became economical through the speed of modern framing, and developed an entire industry where nearly every supplier, inspector, and worker already expects wood framing as the standard. American houses aren't wooden because builders forgot about brick, or never considered the alternative. They are wooden because once an entire country learns to build one way, across generations, changing the underlying system becomes far more expensive than simply changing the material on any single house. It's a pattern that shows up again and again once you start looking for it. A system that made perfect sense generations ago, still running today, simply because nobody could afford to stop it. But construction isn't the only American system hiding the true cost behind a surface decision. Even the price printed on a tag in a store usually isn't what you actually pay at the register. And the reason behind that gap is stranger and older than sales tax itself.